Hello, thank you for joining us today on another episode of Future of Work, C-Series Real Talk, in honor of Asian Heritage Month. Today, we're interviewing the CEO of Curacubby, Steven Khoung. My name is Ahmed Flex Omar, Deputy Director and CXO of MALA, the Muslim American Leadership Alliance. So you all know the contemporary environment for work is in a dramatic state of flux, not only due to the ongoing global pandemic, which has strained legacy workflow processes, but also thanks to the extreme and unexamined advances made in online collaboration and communication tools. Workplaces and whole companies are beginning to reevaluate how a business is organized in the 21st century. Addressing these open questions facing contemporary entrepreneurship is the Future of Work C-Series Real Talk, sponsored by Mala and moderated by fintech industry veteran Holly Weckler. The series gathers thought leaders and experts in the field of entrepreneurship, management, and technology to discuss the executive perspective on business, building a business at a great time of change. Now it's my distinct honor to introduce your host and moderator, Holly Weckler.
Well, thank you, Flex. That was quite a professional intro. I really felt like we're really starting this new show that Steve was asking us to do, talking about making it a wake-up show. While it might be the afternoon here for us on the Midwest or East Coast, I think one of the big goals about the future of work is really trying to make sure that we're not walking through life or running through life on autopilot anymore, and that we're really intentional with everything we do. So welcome. As Flex said, my name is Holly Weckler. I'm excited to be here today with a close fintech friend, Steven here, the CEO of Curacubby. Steven, welcome. Do you want to give us a little bit of your brief background before I start diving in with my questions?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, first of all, I want to thank you, Holly. Thank you, Flex, and the entire Mala conglomerate. You guys are amazing for putting this together. A little bit about myself. I'm the co-founder and CEO of a fintech startup by the name of Curacubby. We provide workflow automation and payment processing to schools of all sizes. We came out of the Yodlee InvestNet incubator a number of years ago, and we're really proud to say that we're growing. And even in the midst of the pandemic, we've been able to look at some of the changes as opportunities versus roadblocks. And I'm happy to share some of my experiences with you all today.
Yeah, well, let's give a quick shout out to Jeff Kane and the incubator program. I know that's near and dear to my heart. That's actually how we met once upon a time. Before we get started, why don't you just give me your favorite incubator, because Jeff Kane is seriously the master Jedi. I've learned so much working underneath him. It was great. I worked with him for 6 years at Yodlee, and I have to say the incubator roadshow and just brainstorming with him and getting just the candid advice, but also the forward thinking, with a lot of the things that I personally, I guess those would be two things that I personally enjoyed and benefited from. But I just want to ask you that real quick, and then we'll get into your whole background back in your hip hop DJing days.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we wouldn't be here without Jeff Kane. So Jeff, so much gratitude to you. Jeff is, at the time, he was director of the incubator over at Yodlee. And, we were just kind of like freshman students walking in there. And I felt like we graduated with a different sense of who we are based on everything that we leveraged from Jeff's knowledge. But beyond the business stuff, I think Jeff is just an incredible person. I think he was, we became good friends and we still keep in touch. And Jeff, God bless you, man. If you're listening to this podcast, this is dedicated to you.
Yeah, right. He's a really good friend. I have to agree with you on that. So now that we've established that Jeff is the most interesting man in whatever room he's in, let's get back to the future of work and why we're here today. So as I was looking through your background, before we really, kind of get into Curacubby and what they do, I thought, let's talk a little bit about kind of where you came from. For me, being back in Michigan right now, there's been a lot of that. I keep thinking about where do I want to go next? But I think it's also important before you run into the next best thing is your think what you think is the next best thing. Is to really remember where you came from and what did you really want to do once upon a time. So I see here that you you grew up in the golden age of hip hop on the West Coast. And then you actually started your first company when you were 12 years old, DJing at dances. So basically yesterday I was dying when I was reading this. I'm like, literally, you wouldn't be allowed there by day, but you're allowed there at the dance. Like, it's like, that's like that's the thing that you gain rites of passage to that. So I don't know how you bypassed attending school, but somehow made it to the dance. So why don't you enlighten us all?
Yeah. So speaking of hip hop, I'm gonna quote something from one of my favorite groups of all time, Eric B. and Rakim. And Rakim basically said, "It ain't where you're from, it's where you're at." And although that's true, I think it's also important to reflect upon our legacy. So I'm gonna go back a little bit before we talk about Oakland and the golden age of hip hop. So a little bit about myself. I'm an immigrant refugee. So I'm Chinese by descent, but I was born in Vietnam. And we literally came to the United States, and we were sponsored. We were in a refugee camp. We were sponsored by a Christian family in the great state of Michigan. Holly, can you believe it or not? Yeah, believe it or not.
Oh, but I love that. See,
Yeah,
Michigan, like
my
the
first
Midwest
land.
people are the best.
You guys are the best. I don't think that we would be here without the Michigan family that sponsored us. So we landed in Michigan. I was like 3.
Where at?
Grand Rapids. It was a suburb, suburbs, yeah. So Southeast Asian people, snow, we don't do well in those environments, right? So after about a year, my family decided that we need to get to a place where it's a little bit warmer, and we were also the only, like, I think, Asian people there.
Especially then.
Yeah, especially then. Yeah.
Even now.
Yeah. So to make a long story short, we landed in San Francisco. We had a family friend here. And when we first got here, it was a little bit of a culture shock as well, being around, all these white kids in, preschool. Now in Oakland, California, we're just like all Black kids, So my thing was like, damn, Steve, like this is crazy. And there were Asian folks here as well.
Even to provide a little context, like where you came from, like on the west side of Michigan. Flex, actually, I just took him there recently. We did a road trip from Chicago to Michigan, and he was like, he told me, he goes, "Are we in Africa right now? Like, what's going on?" Like, there's just so much open land, and where I'm from on the Metro Detroit side, like my parents, I grew up at 25 Mile. Everyone knows the legendary 8 Mile movie, right? So at an hour away from my mom's house. And I mean, it is really true though, that life changes when you cross at 8 Mile and Outer Drive. It's where Grosse Pointe and Detroit meet, which is Grosse Pointe's one of the richest neighborhoods in Detroit, or out in the Metro Detroit. And then
there was
you're
a movie about that, Grosse Pointe, I remember.
Exactly. So it's like the side of the state that I'm on is actually really populated, has been populated, but where the side of the state you landed was even less populated then. So you went from, just to give everyone else context who doesn't know Michigan, you went from a very like open area, open plains to Oakland, California. So there probably wasn't any African Americans at all in the area you landed in, Grand Rapids, that you bumped into, let alone being the only Asian family.
No, I can give you a visual. I remember being in preschool, and we were in this church, and when I looked outside, like all I saw was like just land and like a graveyard.
Exactly. Yeah. So, okay. So go on. So yeah, now that you've left the prairie lands and now you've
I'm in Oakland, it's culture shock. And, speaking of sort of like diversity, or this is Asian American Pacific Islander Heritage Month, I'm going to say this, I think oftentimes when we think about adversity, racial issues, inequality, those kind of things, we tend to think about like the conflicts between different races. But I'm going to tell you something that maybe, other Asian immigrants can empathize with. When I first got to California, the discrimination that I faced was from other Asians.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow.
Yeah, so there's like two groups. There's like the Asians that have been in the US for a long time, and then there are the immigrants, you know? And so I didn't feel like, you know, I was very much welcomed into the Asian group. So I went the other way. I was like, wow, what is this music? You know, my first best friend, he was mixed. He is Black, Native American, and Italian. And you know, gosh, Houdini, Fat Boys. I mean, all these, like, you know, Run DMC, LL Cool J. That was when I landed in Oakland, California. That was like, what is this? That was like from that moment on, I knew all I wanted to become was a DJ and a producer. So
And
yeah.
how old were you there when
I was young. I was like really, really young. But I got my first set of turntables when I was 12. So I started DJing when I was 12. And it was like, you know, like destroying records, vinyl, like, you know, for those that are a little bit young, these are records, vinyl records. You can actually scratch on them and they'll, you know, if you don't treat them right, you know, you can scratch them out. So, you know, I was always like a hungry little kid. You know, my when we first got here, our family was on welfare. So I mean, I saw all the hardship that my parents went through, and I just told myself, like, look, I don't want to be in this situation, but also like I want to do something now. I'm not going to wait until I'm like an adult. So what can I do now? So, you know, I'm watching rap videos, and you can see in these videos.
What'd your parents say to you when you said that? Like, I want to do something now. Like, I mean, I personally think I told you this story when I was 6-year-old. I started a lemonade stand, and I was laughing with my siblings about it the other day because my older sister Katie's like, yeah, but what you didn't tell everybody was that you had put everyone else to work. I had my babysitter making our lemonade. I had my little sisters. Once I found the builders and my supply increased, I outweighed my demand. I sent my little sisters with a wagon to go get more supplies while I stood and worked the table. You know, I mean, this was a 6-year-old lemonade stand, so this was pretty easy to shut the business down. But what did, you know, your parents say, and especially as they see you actually really getting real gigs?
I think for the most part, they just kind of like ignored me. They're like, oh, okay, whatever. They were never really discouraging until I got older. Like when I got into college, they were like really discouraging. But, you know, I'm like 12. So they're like, okay, do what you want, you know, save some money, get your turntables. They just thought it was going to be a fad or a hobby. But I started growing a business. I was doing school dances. And
how did that start? How did you get into like a school? I mean, it's kind of interesting that your company now is also working with schools. Kind of an interesting, yeah, for you know, for telling there. But how did you work around the, I guess?
So everything is timing. Everything is timing. There was a school dance, and the DJ that was booked didn't show up. That was it. And I was like,
how did they know
I got turntables, I got speakers, I got records. I'm gonna come. I'll do this thing, and like pay me like $100, whatever it was. After that, I was booking dances. It's about the mouthpiece. I would call schools. I would be like, look, it's $300. We'll do a school dance. We did high schools. We did like all of the schools in Oakland.
Did you had a partner with you, or who was doing it with you? Your parents?
It was so I was the main DJ, but my friend Trace would come along. My brother would come along. They would just be like carrying the record crates and setting stuff up. It was.
And then your parents drove you?
No. My friend Rich had a car. He was older.
Oh, the guy with the car. Every friend group got to have the guy with the car.
You need to do it with the car.
Mm-hmm.
So
okay.
It's you know, it's funny that you bring up Curacubby, but that's the same way we started Curacubby. We start cold calling schools, and we did the same thing back in the days. So everything is timing, and it is a lot of hustle and grind as well. I mean, for every 10 calls you make, like 9 are going to be like, get out of here, kid. Like, what are you talking about? But you get the one, and you build a reputation from that one.
So, well, let's foray into Curacubby. But before I do that, I'm curious. So you had your friends helping you at this point. Were you giving them a cut of anything? Were you paying for gas money? Like, then we're going to move into how you actually started a business. I'm
not going to disclose the P&L of my 12-year-old DJ business.
I know. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I was always a generous person. That's how I was able to maintain the business. Like, look, you can't do this stuff on your own. I mean, you know, DJ business, start a business, if you think you're going to be able to do it on your own, you're going to be in for a rude awakening. You don't do this stuff on your own. You need people.
I mean,
You gotta treat them well.
even my lemonade stand, I need my little sisters, you know? So, okay. So now as we're thinking about this, so like you had that moment, which I always like to call, it's like the aha moment, you know, or as David, my favorite, David Ogilvy on advertising says, you need to have the gas moment. What makes consumers go, oh, you know, what was this, right? So you found your in the DJing, and I know we'll talk about some of the other stuff that you've done as well, from being an inventor. It seems like a lot of what you've done really is kind of growing off of, you know, kind of how you felt. Even the athletics business was kind of focused on making sure everybody was included. So who actually came up with the idea of Curacubby? Like, how did it start, and how did you find that initial team?
Yes, for sure. So let me give you like a condensed timeline. So from the DJ business, we went to the production business. Then I started a record label, sold the record label, put myself through college using that money.
Nice.
When I graduated from college, I'm going to date myself, I'm older. When I graduated from college, there was no Google. Okay, so here's the opportunity. I was recruited by a company that was going to staff all of these Silicon Valley startups. So I joined the company, and we were one of the top agencies in the Bay Area at the time. And that was like my first real kind of corporate gig out of college. So after about 1.5 years, I quit and started my own staffing company. And we held that thing together for a long time until the .com crash. And then that went down. Now, once that went down, I was like, I want to do something that's going to help reverse some of like the mental health issues. You know, when you have an economy that's crashing, it's not just about the wealth, it's about your mental health as well, right? Yeah. And why I chose the fitness business is because when I was a teenager, I was paralyzed with Guillain-Barré syndrome. And fitness, yeah, I know, right? And fitness, that my high school gym teacher was the one that got me back into like, not only like a physical sustainable state, but also mentally strong. Like it doesn't matter that you were paralyzed. It doesn't matter that, you know, you're trying to hide in ROTC and not come to gym class, but we're gonna do some things about that mentally, right? So anyways, when the .com crashed, I was like, I'm gonna honor that experience and I'm gonna go into fitness. So we started a fitness business. You know, it was like, we sold it recently right before the pandemic, but it was been around for about 15 years. And so the reason why I'm bringing this up is because Curacubby would probably never existed if it wasn't for my son being diagnosed with autism. I would still be in the fitness business, but since he was diagnosed with autism, we were looking for services to meet his needs appropriately. We didn't feel like we found one that met his needs. So therefore we, along with a number of families in the area, started a preschool out of a room of a church. And it was during that process that we learned how inefficient the back office was. And we're like, we got to do something about this. Otherwise we can't grow this organization. And that is the beginnings of Curacubby. How did the founders come about? The founders were my clients from the gym business. So everything comes full circle.
Oh, wow.
So if that's not like a crazy story with a lot of twists and turns.
No, that really is. So okay, so the founders are your clients from the
gym business. Yeah. So Brian Meckler and Ross Lugos, they're my co-founders, and they were both, you know, clients at the gym. And I knew Brian was an amazing product guy. He worked at Boku, and he was led some investments over at Orange Telecom, and his thing was payments. And I was like, one day I was like, hey, Brian, I got this crazy idea. We're having some troubles at the school. You know, invoices are being paid by check. People are not, you know, understanding how much they owe. And he's like, you know what? I'm having the same problems at my daughter's preschool. They sent me an invoice and was handwritten on a yellow piece of paper, and I can't read the woman's handwriting. So that's how it started, you know. And then Ross was a client at the gym, but I also knew Ross from the music business because I used to produce music for his wife, who was a very popular singer in the Bay Area. That's how I met Ross. And I knew that Ross had worked at Moody's, which is a big, financial analytics company. He was the director of data services there. And I'm like, Ross, we're going to start a fintech company and we need somebody to manage the data. So needless to say, it was, a couple of dinners and a conversation. And I got these guys excited and, here we are.
Well, I mean, that's one of the biggest things that I've noticed in my career is just the power of networking. I always believe in just the law of reciprocity, connecting every dot you can. And before you know it, you'll have a community, you have an idea, there's Jason Henricks, my fintech mentor, and the guy who actually taught me about fintech was the founder of Fintech Chicago. Taught me there's a Harvard clustered methodology about it, talking about just bringing the right people together, in a community and then letting business foster. So when you guys all kind of came together though, as I guess, this founding team, and you don't have to, I don't want to know like I'm not going to ask you the details, but like when you're thinking about this, you've done this a few different times, like, do you have any advice for other people? Like, how do you break down the equity? Like, between it's your idea versus, right? Like, because that's kind of something I think some people think maybe we should all be equal, but then there might be resentment. I've read different entrepreneurial stories. So just curious what you're open to share.
Yeah, so I'm going to say this. So Curacubby was the first business venture that I went into where I had to share equity. Previously, every venture was bootstrapped. So I was like, it's mine, it's a sole decision. There are pros and cons with both. But I'm going to say this, before you even think about equity split, don't even think about that. Take 3 months, 6 months to see if you even like the people that you're working with. That's really what you should be thinking about. Because at the end of the day, ideas are great, and you can execute, but there will come a time when there's going to be some conflicts within the co-founding group. And you're going to want to know that, this isn't going to be just one of those ventures where you can divorce very easily. Because if you can, you're going to be out. That's the thing, right? Mm-hmm. Everyone's always looking for a way out. So you want co-founders that are going to be with you thick and thin, and you want to know that they're not down for a divorce. You want to know that they're willing to work through it. So that's number one.
So you said 3 to 6 months. Like, is that like what you're like? Do you have any advice on how people get to their MVP? Is that what you're assuming that the 3 to 6 months is, or like, is there a magical recipe on how to get there, or what you need to get there?
I think it's kind of like relationship and dating, right? It's 3 to 6 months. Like if you go too far from there, then it's kind of like, should I even be in this place? Like by the end of 6 months, there should be still a level of excitement, but at the same time, you feel very confident that these people are down for you and they're ride or die, So it's that, like before 6 months, before 3 to 6 months, it's like it's puppy love phase. After 6 months, kind of like if that spark is not there and the confidence isn't there, then it's like, you should be out.
Okay. Well, so then, all right. So then moving forward with your partners, how did you guys get to MVP? What was your guys' process? Did you go straight to funding? Did you, what did you you said you did Bootstrapped in the past. Yep. What was kind of the difference in this venture?
Yeah, so we bootstrapped this one as well. So the first 6 months, it was all of our personal money. We came in, it was simple math, right? You just take whatever the cost is, you split it 3 ways. And for us, I think we had the benefit of having a beta school to test it on, which is the school that we were building. So that was our benefit. Like
you actually, because when you were doing it at the church, right? Exactly, so you didn't actually have to. Oh, so you had an initial client of your, you're not only, that's like the hair club for men. You're not only
this is the hair club for men, not only the client, but the player president, right?
Yeah, exactly. That's pretty cool. I mean, hey, I'm kind of working that on with my side idea. So go on. I like this. Okay.
Yeah. So we had that benefit. Now I will say this. Even before we went commercial, we were able to kind of tap into the local network of schools. And there were other schools that were experiencing similar problems. And we were able to have conversations with them and say, hey, we want you all to test this out. There's going to be no cost. And then when we release this, you guys can come on for like a huge discount. So we were able to aggregate, I want to say the first 7 schools on a semi-paid trial.
And that was just from cold calling, you said in the beginning?
It was I don't want to say that those were cold calls. I think those were like a second or third degree network. They were warm.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Because somebody knew somebody, they knew what you were doing. The word kind of was kind of spreading kind of thing.
Exactly.
Word of mouth is really the most powerful, especially with the kind of getting to the point of what you guys actually do at Curacubby. I'll let you actually give your own pitch now that we've kind of, teased out your entrepreneurial story. What I wrote here when I was looking at it, it's like the single source of truth, right? It's like one area, and listening to some of your customer testimonials, it seemed really kind of interesting, all of the different facets that you guys are offering. How did you kind of figure out how to expand that? And is everybody taking advantage of all of the tools, or, I guess, where's your main product to the accounting tools?
That's a great question, Holly. So the single source of truth, the fundamental idea here is that if you're a school, you're likely keeping your data siloed. So like tuition payments are probably stored somewhere in a file over here, and the application and enrollment information is likely stored somewhere over here. So in these two places, you're still aggregating similar information, or even sometimes the exact information, but they're siloed. And how do you merge that data together? So that's just like a very simple use case. But imagine like a school that's like K to 12 and you have like 1,000 students. That gets pretty complicated. Those silos are like all over the place, right? So we learned that really, really early on, even working at the preschool level, that data needs to be kept in a single place that you can trust. Otherwise, you're just gonna have to spend a lot of human resources scrambling to find out, like, okay, the payment's updated, but what about the emergency contact information?
Yeah, what if they have a sibling at the school? Like, I'm one of 7. So the first thing that I thought about is I was like, well, if all these are in different silos, am I connected? Is my mom having to get different payments for each one of her kids?
I'm 7. Yeah. Yeah. No, you're exactly right. That's it. So that's the core value proposition, is that we don't want you spending a lot of time and human resources looking for things. But beyond that, we want to make sure that if you can get to that information, that file that you're looking at is the right file.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay, great.
So then now we think about, like, payments, enrollment, registration, attendance, compliance. The list goes on and on and on and on. And we felt that it was going to be difficult for any customer to come on and take on all of these tools all at once, because it's too heavy. So early on, we built the product from a very modular perspective. So you can buy different modules to account for different needs that you may have. And over time, as you become more comfortable with the product, you may want to add on a couple of more modules. So that's the idea. So yeah.
What's it like working with the big schools versus the camps? So you said you had 7 to start with your pilot program.
Yep.
How many do you have on your platform now? And can you talk to us a little bit just about the different user experience with, like, maybe a summer camp versus school, like you said, K through 12?
Right. Yeah. So we service over 500 locations right now, hitting 20 states. So we're growing. I feel like the main difference is the internal resources that the customers may or may not have. So if you're a larger institution, a larger educational organization, you're going to have staff in accounting, you're going to have staff in IT, you're going to have staff in enrollment and registration. And for those customers, we can train each department separately with domain specific thought leadership. When you're a smaller organization, typically the director can also be the owner of the school. So you're dealing with one brain. So we tend not to overload this person. So the onboarding and the deployment is a little bit different. And also the amount of just information, we tend to lessen that with some of our smaller customers. We're a very service-oriented company. I know that's probably not a great thing to say for all of you investors out there. You guys want us to be like less service oriented, but it is the industry of education, and we know our customers. They want to know that they can talk to somebody, and we account for that. So
Yeah, and speaking of that, so going from 700 to over 500 in 20 states, I mean, that's a large amount of growth, and especially during a pandemic. How did you manage hiring? I know personally, because I know your journey. I know you actually had just like created a new office. I think it was in Texas, and like right before the pandemic, right? So what did you do as a founding team to still, I guess, continue growing and then keeping your employees motivated? And especially the new employees when you can't really even have them in person.
I wish I can give you like that perfect answer, but the real answer, and I just wrote about this on Twitter just last night, the real answer is iteration. Iterate. Like literally during the pandemic, things were changing from month to month. Like, during March, everything was pretty much shut down. All of our schools, particularly in California, had to close. And at that moment, the customer was like, okay, we're just going to put everything on hold for a month and we're going to come back the next month. So we planned for that. Obviously, it didn't happen. The pandemic lasted longer than that. So we made a decision early on in the very early stages of the pandemic that we're going to just assume that this thing was going to last for at least a year. And that every month we would have to come back, look at our numbers, look at our go-to-market strategy, be in touch with our customers, find out how we can really help them, even, if it's not on a revenue generating basis. Because at the end of the day, we need to keep our customers alive, because without customers, you have no business. So it is that concept. Just, we're not going to have the perfect plan. Like nobody planned for a pandemic. Like no one. Like I don't know of any organization that can come out right now and be like, oh, we had the perfect plan. No, you didn't. Nobody had the perfect plan, because things kept changing. That being said, you have to be flexible enough to pivot on the snap of your fingers. If you're not ready to do that, then I think you're potentially going to be in a little bit more trouble. But if you're mentally prepared to be flexible and switch directions, then I think those are the valuable assets, in a time like this.
And one of the things that I found that was really interesting, and I'm curious kind of how you're able to curate the testimonials in this time. Like I was watching some of your testimonials and they were great. Like they were really excited, and like I think I was making the dad joke too. It was a really nice touch to have the contactless feature spoken about. And I'm sure that was actually really important during this pandemic when it wasn't ending, and people are like, well, we need to get our kids doing something, so how did you guys go about actually, working with the parents to actually get these, just for other entrepreneurs to think about this? Because that was something that was surprising to me in a cool way.
Yeah, thank you for that. Yes, during the pandemic, we pivoted ourselves from, a fintech payments company into more of like a compliance data management company temporarily. We're still doing payments, of course. But that being said, we were highly aware of how the pandemic was affecting organizations that would aggregate people into one place. We're talking about churches, restaurants, retail stores, and obviously schools, right? Schools fall into that bucket as well. And we were thinking ahead, but we were also very cognizant that we wouldn't have the complete picture unless we talked to our customers. So we spent a lot of time talking to our customers, and we spent a lot of time even talking to the legislature, the folks that are making the laws in the state, and just trying to get a sense of like what they're thinking about. Like, hey, is it going to be limited capacity? Is it going to be no capacity? Like, how are you letting kids back in? So we gathered a lot of data, and from there we were able to convince our engineering team to be nimble. And that's, by the way, you guys know this, that's not always an easy conversation. Like, sales and marketing and and leadership, when we go to engineering, their answer is always no. We have a product roadmap. No. But kudos to our team. They were able to understand the dire needs, right? And they were like, okay, we're going to pivot. We're going to put like 5 of these things on pause, and we're going to release the touchless attendance. And we released it like in 6 weeks. It was really fast.
That's a really quick pivot there. You kind of mentioned something that struck me, and I recall from an event in what I like to call EBC, events before COVID, when we actually were in person, which we'll be back to soon. But we were talking about this event that of yesteryear, that they were saying that the importance for fintechs, especially when you're developing, actually making sure that you have a regulatory compliance lawyer working with you in developing your idea. Is that how you were able to get in touch with the regulators, or how were you guys able to, work with? Is it just because of the size you are now, or kind of explain to me a little bit of how you were so easily able to have those conversations with people about what they were doing?
So 2 fronts. So early on, when we first started the company, we were already engaged with a number of advocacy groups in California and other states that have direct contact with the legislative bodies of the state.
Cool.
So we learned that early on, and that's how we put that as part of our go-to-market strategy, is to be in touch with those groups. And then obviously, we have to thank all of our legal partners that help Curacubby. There's so many firms that help us. But in particular, I want to give a shout out to Josh over at Cooley.
Very nice.
There you go.
So you guys think, but I guess I'm kind of curious, like how those conversations went, and if there was any follow through with what it was, because I feel like everything kept changing. So was that, was it almost too much information, to help you be able to keep on the right track? Do you know what I'm trying to say? Like, I feel like with everything changing, it might be more confusing.
I know exactly where you're trying to get to. So I would say this: with the information that we gathered, we've always put in a 20% fudge factor, meaning that, okay, we're going to build this product. We're not going to build it at 100%, because that's a lot of time and money and resources to put into something in a pandemic where things are changing every month. So there was a 20% sort of like flex room for that product to change. So like being nimble was actually on the game plan. Like it was on the product roadmap. Every 4 weeks, be nimble, be nimble, be nimble, be nimble. That means we don't want to have any arguments with our VP of engineering or our CTO. He's like, look, you guys know that every 4 weeks something could change. Let's just be mentally prepared for that.
And how many people are there right now at your company?
We have close to 30 people now.
Oh, wow. That's really exciting. How have you guys gone about hiring? Did you guys use any outside recruiting resources?
Yeah. We primarily do our own W-2 hires, but we do leverage an agency to do temp to perm hiring as well.
Okay. And what about when you guys were first starting? You said someone did payments, someone knows data, but did you guys have a technical co-founder, or did you guys outsource that to start?
Yeah, so Brian, our CTO, is the technical co-founder, but we also had a senior architect / developer / engineer / coder. He did everything. His name is George, and he lives in Greece. As a matter of fact, he's been with us since day one. Yeah.
Greece, I miss Greece.
Yeah, that's a great
We're
place.
in Greece,
Athens.
Daydreaming now. Oh God, goodness. Okay, so you did everything internally from the start. You didn't hire any outsourced dev firms or anything like that.
No.
Yeah. And then what about when you guys went from, you guys said you started for the first 6 months bootstrapping, then what was the change? Did you guys decide to go friends and family? Like what were you guys kind of thinking, or how does one think about that?
We went to friends and family. We did an angel round. Many of our early angels were, God bless Google executives. My brother's been there for a long time, so that was like, we're leveraging his network. And we also met a really, really savvy investor, George Gong. George, shout out to you as well. He came on as one of our early angels, and that was a necessity, because at that time we were actually acquiring customers faster than we can do releases. So it was necessary to get the funding. And it was shortly thereafter that we joined the incubator. And once we graduated from the incubator, we were able to raise our first institutional round.
Oh, great. And when was that?
gosh, when did we graduate? Holly, you know this better than me. It's been,
Yeah, I was thinking
you know,
probably 2017. You started in 2015.
I think
so-
2017. Yeah, 2017 we
That's
graduated.
what I think it was. Because if you started in 2015 in the first 6 months, then you went to fundraising, and then after that, yep, probably 2017 would be
There
about
you go.
the last
See,
you
the
were there.
timeline, you know all this stuff. You see in your head.
I know. It's like it's up there, just trying to tease it out for everyone here. And then how much did you guys do? Is it public how much you guys raised, or you don't want to talk about that? I don't know.
Well, it's on pitch book, but I probably shouldn't be talking about it because we're getting ready to raise
Yeah,
again.
no worries, no worries. So yeah,
The pitch book is all in there. Yeah.
let's rephrase the question. How do you go about, like, when you're thinking about fundraising?
Yep.
I always hear people say, the 16-month runway, 18-month runway, burn rate, run rate, right? You know, so there's a lot of different jargon that, you know, all of us fintechers love. That, you know, for the general audience out there, what would you advise somebody like?
I would say that you have to really understand the DNA of your business first, and then understand like where you want to get your money from. If you're going to be taking the VC route, you know, likely is that they're going to want you to grow, you know, pretty rapidly and raise every 16, 18, 20 months or less if you're growing faster than that. But if you're going the PE route, then that's going to be a little bit different. They're going to want you to, you know, they're going to understand that you're not necessarily growing as fast, but they want to be very capital efficient, and they want you to, like, you know, break even or become profitable pretty soon. It's two totally different perspectives.
You want to explain to people what the two different perspectives are there? Because I'm not sure if people know
Sure.
private equity and,
Great.
you know, so.
Yep. So typically speaking, venture capitalists are looking for phenomenal growth, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 10x. And in order for them to get a really strong ROI, they're going to want to see that very, very steep growth trajectory. If you're looking to get, you know, backed by private equity, then their investment theses are different. They're looking at more of a long-term hold. You don't necessarily need to grow at 4x. If you grow at 2x, it's good, but they want you to be more capital efficient, you know, try to break even, become profitable sooner, and they want to, you know, maximize more operational efficiency. Whereas typically a VC can, like, accept that you're not necessarily that operational efficient if you're growing tremendously. So the two thesis points are different.
So what would you advise for, like, why is it different industries? Is it a different volatility of your business? Why would one?
Well, you know, of course, there's no one universal truth, but I would say that from my experience, if you're a company with a vision to go IPO, then, you know, the VC route is generally where it's been, because they're the folks that have that IPO visual in their mind as well. So you're kind of like on the same page. But if, you know, you're like, you want to grow a lifestyle business that you want to sell, then VCs are probably not going to be the route you want to grow with. You want to go with a private equity firm that likes that kind of stuff. They love scooping up a bunch of lifestyle businesses, optimizing it, and then selling it at, you know, 4 or 5x. But that's sort of a longer term play. So that's how I would think about it as an entrepreneur.
Okay. And now that we're nearing our end of our time here, I know Flex has told anyone who has questions to ask questions. But just, you know, just to kind of close it up here, I would say, like, what do you think is, you know, we've kind of talked about where we've been, what we've done, but, you know, what do you think's coming next? Like, we are starting to get back in person. I know I'm fully vaccinated. I'll be in Chicago next week. So excited about that. Got some meetings coming up that I'm looking forward to now that people are also getting vaccinated. But I don't feel like it's ever going to go back to the same. I feel like now we can get back in person. We still need to mix the virtual with in person, but I'm not sure how you feel it's going to be in terms of your employees going to the office, or, you know, whatever, open-endedly, however you think is going to be the future of work.
Holly, I think you cut off for a second. Okay, I'll try to answer.
Yeah, open-ended questions, the future of work to you.
So at least for us, we're keeping both options open to our employees. If you want to work from home because you're feeling like that's where your safest environment is, so be it. But we also understand that there's going to be particular team members that need that physical proximity at least for us, we're keeping both options open.
Okay, cool. I think there's a question that just came. I don't believe that you have, obviously you guys haven't branched out of America yet, right? They're asking if there's anything in international customers. I think my internet's done. Oopsie. Hey guys, I think I'm losing my internet here. Looks like we might have lost some people here on the Wi-Fi. Flex, you there? Do we still got you there, buddy?
Yep, I'm still here. I think we lost Steven. He froze there for a minute. So
Okay, well, I mean, I think that it's been a great discussion. I thank everyone for joining us today. If there's any other questions that you guys have, we're happy to reconnect and follow up with Steven. It was a really great discussion and look forward to the next session at Future of Work next month.
how, Holly, is there a way for people to reach Steven?
Yeah, we can give his the company website and his email.
Okay.
Do you want me to send it to the panelists?
Mm-hmm. To the audience.
I'll send it in the direct message here to panelists and attendees. Here's his LinkedIn.
Oh, I think he's rejoining now.
Oh, okay. Hey, we got disconnected. I think the Wi-Fi went out, but we were just closing up. I gave everyone a link to your LinkedIn. And then we're just wrapping up and saying thank you everyone for everyone's time.
Sorry, my video cut off, guys.
No, mine did. It happens to us all. This is the future of work, right? We're all somewhere, the Wi-Fi, the Bluetooth, my headphones, I never know what device they're connected to anymore.
Expected,
Yeah.
unexpected.
Yeah, well, thank you so much for your time today. And definitely we gave your panel, we gave everyone your information, and we'll be following up with everyone soon.
We should do this one in person. This should be like an in-person event pretty soon.
Soon in Chicago. That's the goal, is getting to Chicago. You can meet up with your incubator friends that are there. There's a number of alumni. Heather Holmes of Genevity is one. But there's others. So Flex and I will make a plan, and we'll get it all together in Chicago. And anyone else who's welcome to branch out and make it to Chicago, the Mala events are some of the best ones I've ever attended.
Thank you so much, guys.